Ladies and gentlemen, could you take your seats, please? We're about to begin.
Here, just wait 1 minute.
Okay, and then I'll get.
And then you're gonna.
You bet. Okay.
So you might want to stand back.
You bet. You mean chill? You want me to go now?
Please take your seats.
Okay, watch. I'll make them all shut up. Are you ready? You bet. No, I won't.
Please take your seats.
You see her? Oh, you see her?
I'm going to call in some assistants.
Go ahead.
See there? I told you. Please be seated.
Thanks to Mike Moore, the only yodeler I know, member of our board. Greetings to everyone. I am Karen DeBartolome, founding executive director of World Denver. Welcome to our second annual celebration of International Women's Day, and what a celebration it is. At the World Denver Board Retreat last year, our facilitator urged us to adopt the theme of abundance. So at today's event, we indeed experience abundance. We have an abundance of World Denver members. We've just surpassed 800 members last month. Not bad for a 2-year-old organization. New friends and an abundance of really great talent in the room today. Welcome, everybody, and let's make today truly a great celebration of the abundance of the wonderful, talented women all around the world. We are indebted to so many people for today's success, but I wanted to acknowledge in particular one woman who quietly in the background brought us together, and that is Betty Peterson. Betty, would you please give us your Queen Mary wave? Thank you. We honored Betty's late husband, Ralph Peterson, who was one of Jacqueline Hinman's predecessors at CH2M Hill at our Diplomats Ball several years ago. It was a great event for another great leader at CH2M Hill. Thank you, Betty, for making today possible. We also wanted to do a shout out to Colorado State Representative Brittany Pedersen, who is here with us today, Mayor Doug Tisdale, Cherry Hills Village, Jennifer Rocala from Senator Udall's staff, his state director, Monisha Merchant from Senator Bennett's office. Thanks all of you for celebrating International Women's Day with us. And of course, a very special welcome to our 16 international visitors and another round of applause for our awesomely talented, beautiful, intelligent, hardworking co-chairs, Marcy Grossman and Lori Zeller. We have a really packed program today, so I'm going to ask Congresswoman Diana DeGette first, and then Alma Candelaria, the State Department's top official for the visitor program, each to come up and say a few words of welcome as we begin our meal. Then we'll resume our program just around 12:30.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'm Diana DeGette, and I want to welcome you to Colorado's 1st Congressional District. In case you didn't know you were in my district, I want to thank, and to our beautiful museum, I want to thank Marcy and Lori for co-hosting this and all of the wonderful sponsors. But I mostly want to thank our international visitors from the International Visitor Leadership Program who are here with us. Can you all stand up just for a brief moment? You can sit down. The reason I'm thanking them is because they were the ones who invited me to lunch today. Through the International Visitor Leadership Program, they came to Washington, D.C. when I was in Washington several weeks ago, and we had a long and really wonderful meeting about development of women's political power around the world. And we learned a lot from each other. So they said, you know, we're coming to your district, and by the miracle of modern transportation, here I am to greet them again in the 1st Congressional District. So thank you very much, ladies, for being here. One of the things we talked about in our meeting in Washington, D.C., was what it's like for women political leaders in the United States. And I think some of them were surprised to hear that it's really not a perfect, I know you'll be shocked to hear this too, it's not a perfect situation for women in political leadership in the United States. And one of the things we talked about was how we can get more women involved, not just around the world, but right here at home. I just want to give you a couple of statistics as you think today about International Women's Day and the amount of power that we have right here in this room. Of 535 members of the U.S. House and Senate, only 102 are women. That's about 18%. Based on the percentage of women that we have in our national legislature, the United States is 96th out of 186 countries that's rated by the World Bank. So we have a lot to do compared to, say, Rwanda or Andorra, both countries of which have 50% women in their national assemblies. And the women who came to meet with me, we talked about a lot of different things women can do around the world. About 20 countries around the world have a woman as the head of their government. And I must say, last year, I was really privileged to be in an hour-long meeting with Angela Merkel. And I've got to tell you, women are A, just as tough, B, probably smarter, and C, a lot more collaborative than many of their male colleagues. Now, I know you've got a long program, so I want to leave you with just one thought from a personal perspective. Colorado has, I think, the first or second most women in our legislative assembly of any state in the country. Yeah, you can clap for that. 43% of the House and 37% of the Senate. But here's the bad news. I'm the only woman in our congressional delegation, and I feel that every day. We have 0 women in statewide elected office in Colorado right now, Democrats or Republicans. We've never had a woman governor of the state of Colorado. We've never had a woman U.S. senator in the state of Colorado, and we've never had a woman mayor of Denver. And so here's my challenge to everybody here. Let's take the power in this room. Let's take the power of International Women's Day, and let's see that as a call to action. Let's change this, not just right here at home, but around the globe. Thank you very much.
And now you know that Congresswoman DeGette has been incredibly supportive of the visitor program, both having her staff and her personally meeting with our visitors both in Washington and in Denver. Next, I want to call up Alma Candelaria. She directs the International Visitor Leadership Program, which we've talked about, a flagship program of the State Department's public diplomacy efforts around the world. The 16 women who are in Denver today, 2 of whom you'll meet on the panel in a few minutes, were brought to the United States by Alma and her staff, and they're hosted here in Denver by World Denver. Alma is a presidential appointee, and having known a number of the people who have done her job, I can tell you she is exceptionally active and very approachable as a leader of this program. Please welcome Alma Candelaria.
You know, a couple of weeks ago Karen was in Washington for a national meeting that we do, and she talked up this lunch that you all were hosting in honor of International Women's Day and said, you got to come, you got to come. And she followed up with many emails and got me here. So thank you, congratulations. What a wonderful event, what a full crowd we have here, what a beautiful venue. What a wonderful opportunity to honor women around the world. We talked a little bit about the 16 women that are here today. 2, unfortunately, didn't make it into the program because of a graphic issue. So our woman from Yemen and our woman from Zimbabwe, can you stand up? We know you're here. Can we just... So our program turns 75 years next year, so we're going to have a big anniversary year. We're right about 200,000 alum of this program. Very proud to say that I think we're at about 343 who ultimately alum of the program who've ultimately become heads of state of their country. So it's a very prestigious program. I thank the women who accepted the invitation, and I, again, thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Congresswoman DeGette, for meeting with our ladies in Washington and here again. Denver does programming very well on many topics, one of them being women's issues and women's empowerment. So thank you. Please enjoy your lunch.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you finish your lunch, we are going to continue with the program. So if I might just turn your attention back to the main stage. If I could ask you just to turn your attention back to the program. We really do have a very full program today and a lot to accomplish, so your attention is greatly appreciated. And I have to say, despite the fact that I can see it's snowing outside, we are perfectly on time, and we want to be on time because we want you to hear from our international visitors. Don't make me get the yodeler, because I will. So, as Karen mentioned, my name is Marcy Grossman. I'm the Consul General for Canada, and I wanted to thank Karen for allowing me to be one of her co-conspirators on this year's International Women's Day event. And I want to just say, hashtag best International Women's Day event ever. They wouldn't let me use that as the official hashtag. They said it was too long. But just on the topic of social media, you'll see as the screens were rolling, we do have a hashtag for this event. It's hashtag IWD, International Women's Day. It's not Weapons of Mass Destruction, International Women's Day. At World Denver, which is the call out for World Denver. So if you're a Twitterer, please tweet away. Maybe we could be trending. Maybe we could be, very cool here in Denver and trending for International Women's Day. Seriously, though, Canada is really proud to collaborate with you here today. And actually, we have been celebrating International Women's Day since 1977, when the United Nations adopted a resolution actually naming March 8th as the official day, International Women's Day. And actually, International Women's Week actually starts on March the 1st and ends on March the 8th, which is tomorrow. So next year you can plan to be involved in a week-long series of events. So just in terms of Canada, the equality of women and their full participation in our social and democratic life is really important to the entire Canadian government, so much so that there's actually a federal government department dedicated to women's issues. It's called the Status of Women Canada, and it was established in 1970, even before the UN Declaration. And through this department, the government has dedicated hundreds of millions of dollars towards projects that promote women's economic security and prosperity in Canada. And this is actually in addition to the numerous social programs that support women, like our extremely generous national 52-week paid maternity leave program. Nice. And actually, if I pair that with my speech from last week on immigration reform, I bet there's a lot of women in this room that I could attract to have their babies in Canada, so you can see me about that later. And by many indicators, Canadian women are actually doing quite well. I'm not going to go into the indicators right now, and for lack of time, but I'm just going to say women's Olympic hockey, and I'm just going to leave it there. You know, it's my job. First of all, I just want to say Canada is in the shadow of the United States all the time. If you can't let us win hockey, what can we do, you know? We can't build a pipeline, you know, you got to give us the hockey. Canada is not only a leader at home, but also has been instrumental in promoting health of women and children in developing countries and reducing poverty around the world. In addition to focusing world attention and millions of dollars in resources through the G8 Leaders Summit that was hosted in Canada in 2010 to promote further progress on this important issue, our Prime Minister actually announced yesterday that Canada will be hosting and will be welcoming Canadian as well as global leaders from developed and developing countries to continue on this agenda and to meet again in Toronto, May 28 to 30, for the Maternal, Newborn, and Child Health Summit. So hopefully we will see some of our leaders there in Canada next year. Again, Canada is so proud to be associated with this year's International Women's Day event. And on that note, I would like to invite my co-chair, Lori Hirschfeld-Zeller, to the podium so that we can start our show. This is the part of the program where we want to thank every single person in this room, okay? And Karen said we only have 5 minutes to do this, so listen up, because you will be thanked. There are so many great partners to recognize today. The event was actually built from the ground up. Actually, our goal was 200 people, and we exceeded that target when we had to close registration at 350. So it's a tribute, and thanks to you. To the many individuals, groups, and corporate sponsors who have joined us on this journey, which actually only started 8 weeks ago. Thank you, Karen. On behalf of Lori and myself, our sincerest appreciation, again, to all of you who have contributed to making today possible. So please allow us to thank you, every person in this room, in 5 minutes, or Karen will kill us, who came out and pledged their support to today's event.
First of all, we have several nonprofits and women's organizations that we want to recognize who rallied their troops and who brought literature and display materials to help us create the sense of community around women who care about women in other countries and about issues internationally that affect all women. And we're just very, very pleased that we had an opportunity to bring all these organizations together. So I'm going to very quickly ask the organizations, as I call your name, to just wave, and I want to encourage everyone to check in with the different tables and with the different organizations and learn something about the energy and the intelligence and the commitment of some of these women's organizations that are present here today. So Beyond Our Borders, the amazing Jolynn Whiting, the Lambie Fund of Haiti and Karen Ashmore, Women in Energy, Diane O'Neill, Capital Sisters, Patricia Hinnon, Building Bridges, President Aaron Breeze, and I think their chairman, Nancy Richmond, is here as well, and the Lumpers. We want to continue to work with like-minded organizations on International Women's Day. We're planning a whole week next year, as well as other World Denver programs, to leverage the synergy and the energy that we're feeling in our vibrant nonprofit sector here in Denver.
Next on to and a round of applause for all our nonprofits, please. Okay, Karen, that's half the room. Next, on to our corporate table sponsors, who not only rallied their troops and filled their tables today, but also contributed a little extra funding to help make this event so special. So you could thank them for the dessert before you leave.
Bank of America, a warm welcome to Jessica Rink, who helped us get things started here.
You can clap. When you hear your table name, you can clap. Because if anyone saw me at the World Denver Trivia event, you know that I like a little cheering at events.
Yeah.
And my table is, I think, hopefully ready for that. Next off, Bro Group, founder and CEO, Pat Bro. Central Resources, President and CEO, Paul Zecki.
We're going to be clapping a lot for the next one, CH2M Hill, President and CEO, Jackie Hinman. CoBiz Private Banking, under the leadership of Joanne Field.
The Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade, International Director, Sandy Moilanen. Nice. Those are my girls. There's my girls. They're my neighbors. COGA, Colorado Oil and Gas Association, my dynamic, amazing leader, president, friend, and CEO, soul sister, Tisha Schuler.
Now the trash talking starts. Ireland, Stapleton, Pryor, and Pasco. Thank you to Russell Kemp, our founding board chair, and to my friend Kelly Duke. Project Cure, another organization that has an international presence, that has a display here. Please talk to Lori Porter about Project Cure.
Denver International Airport, Kim Day, Director of Aviation, probably the toughest job in this whole town. IBI Group, thank you to Peter Zerwell and the Denver team.
Pearson Learning Solutions, Jeff Benson, Vice President of Sales. And Colorado Women's College. I think Lynn Gangolan is here. Yes, the Dean. Nice to see you.
Suncor Energy, Canada's sweetheart, Leisha Burnett. World Trade Center, Denver, Karen Gerwitz. And finally, to my team, Canada. No. That wasn't good enough. Eric, I want you to stop your tweeting and lead us in the cheer. I'm going to do it again, okay? Team Canada.
So running a nonprofit is a labor of love and blood, sweat, and tears. We appreciate our members at World Denver, and we appreciate everyone who comes to our programs and participates with IVLP and the different community programs that we run. The Denver Art Museum and Wave Audiovisual, who extended very generous NGO rates so that we could put on today's event. I want to acknowledge Patricia Prevost and Rocky Mountain PBS. Rocky Mountain PBS is our landlord and just a great partner for World Denver. And then finally, one of the best things about volunteering and about board service and chairing an event like this is working with amazing, fun women like my partner here. And the leadership of the World Denver staff. I want to acknowledge Jan Gerzen, who put together all the logistics of tonight.
Stand up, Jan. At 5:30, when you were waking up to walk your dog, Jan was just getting some shut-eye.
Yeah. And then the best collaborator, leader, hardest working, and most fun woman on the planet to work with is Karen DiBartolome.
So I think we've thanked everyone in the room. Do you feel thanked? And with that, we'll bring Karen back up to the podium.
We didn't thank our yodeler, so Mike Moore, thank you very much. I'm not sure they heard me thanking you earlier, so one last person to thank. It's now our pleasure. Our theme, of course, is women leading change, and I think we have a lot. We've demonstrated we have a lot of those women in the room today, but we want to, in particular, honor and present an award to one woman who is leading change. And I want to ask Colin Wheeler to wave. He was intended to present the award. He's gotten that bad cold that I think everybody I know has right now and is not talking. So our former chairman, our founding chairman, Russell Kemp, is back in action to present the award to Jacqueline Hinman.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Lori and Marcy. You all are fabulous. And I'd like to do a quick shout out to all the men in the audience. Thank you for coming out to celebrate strong, accomplished women. It truly is my honor to present the first Women Leading Change Award to Jacqueline Hinman. Jackie rose through the ranks at CH2M Hill, the Denver-based global engineering company, and this January, she was appointed president and CEO. We honor Jackie today just because she has risen to the highest leadership position in one of the largest and most respected companies in a traditionally male-dominated industry. Today's honor is even more about her work and achievements around the world. They are impressive. Just to name a couple of them, as head of 2 different divisions of CH2M Hill, she pursued and developed the London 2012 Olympic Games, also the Panama Canal expansion, and brought those as opportunities to her company. How'd you like to have those on your resume? She's also been, and it has been for a long time, and is a champion of women pursuing STEM careers. And she now leads a company that realizes the benefits of recruiting and advancing career opportunity for women. CH2M Hill has 26 chapters of the company's internal women's network around the globe. 11 of those offices are outside the United States. That sounds like a great opportunity for the women of CH2M Hill. So you could say that Jackie is the leader of Women Leading Change. Jackie, please come up here. We have an award to present to you. For these achievements, World Denver would like to present to you the Women Leading Change Award. Congratulations.
Thank you. Can I open it?
Oh, absolutely.
It's really an award. Oh, wow. It's like really an award. Look at that. Isn't that nice? Thank you. Very nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And of course, in a lovely decorative bag. Of course it would be that way. Thank you very much. I wanted to spend just a few minutes. I know I'm standing between you and a fantastic panel and a little bit of snow. Don't look. But I want to talk a little bit about, I think all of us know about the importance of supporting and investing in women around the world, but I want to give you a few facts and share a little bit of things about what we are doing as one of the largest engineering and construction companies around the world, particularly in supporting communities and NGOs and how that affects women. I mean, we all know that when we invest in women, investments spread farther than anywhere for men and women to all ages. We know that when we educate women, this encourages higher levels of education in family and communities, generations, and higher economic prosperity. I recently read a statistic that in developing nations, even for 1 year of secondary education for a woman, 1 year, that will result in a 33% higher earning capacity for her lifetime. Pretty amazing. We do support women around the globe on various levels, and I'll give you a couple examples to really maybe to help spur more thinking about this, both externally, what we do with our partnerships and philanthropy, and then of course internally with our fabulous women. It starts at the top. I continue to actively mentor men and women both in my company and outside of my company in our industry. I am actually very fortunate this year that through the Fortune Most Powerful Women Mentoring Program in partnership with the State Department, that later this month I will be personally sponsoring Florence Ozar, who is a government relations officer at Ramana Oil and Gas from Nigeria, to be at CH2M Hill for the next month here in Colorado, to personally mentor her on leadership, executive skills, and to have her introduced to our leadership and management team. So it starts at the top, and it needs to stay at the top. We, of course, mentor women throughout our organization. I've got a table right here of women that are being mentored and led. Hopefully there they are right there, that are excited and happy about that. We do support several organizations all throughout the world. We generally focus on the engineering and construction industry, since that's the industry that we are in. I'm going to talk just about a few in Denver, since we are in Denver. Water for People, Engineers Without Borders, Bridges to Prosperity, and Build Change are all organizations we support, along with several others. Several of them run by women, I might add, which is fantastic. And you might say, well, why do these matter to International Women's Day? And they matter a lot. So 1 in 6 people on the planet lack access to clean drinking water. 2 out of 5, 40%, lack access to adequate sanitation. And when we are challenged around the world with water problems, women are affected significantly more than men are. Today, because of this situation, women will spend 200 million hours just today collecting water. And they spend it every day collecting water. Nearly half of girls worldwide attend schools without toilets. And this lack of privacy causes many to drop out when they reach puberty. That doesn't happen as much with men. We know that when women and girls have access to clean water and sanitation, it frees up hours of their time to focus on education and employment. And amazingly, when we establish and operate and maintain new water supplies around the world, we are seeing more often than not that women step into the leadership roles to run those facilities, which is a fantastic outcome. So we are really, really passionate about making a difference and, frankly, basic things in our industry, but frankly in the world, that make a difference for women around the world. We find, for example, our colleagues at Bridges to Prosperity have found that building a footbridge leads to an 18% increase in women employed in places where there's not access, a 24% increase in health care treatment, and 12% more children enrolled in school just for a footbridge that enables people to get to where they need to go. It's a tremendous statistic. Supporting women around the world and supporting basic infrastructure makes a difference. Let me talk a little bit internally about CH2M Hill. Our goal is to have our unfair share of fantastic women that work for us and make a difference in the world. Now, already half of my 30,000 employees around the world are women. My goal, however, not all half of them are in the highest level leadership positions. So my goal is that to have, by the time I am finished at CH2M Hill, half of the leadership team from the board level on down are women. Why would I settle for anything less than what the population is? I have a whole team of women right here that just put a target on my back, by the way, but that's okay. We do differentially invest in women. Thank you for talking about our employee network group, our executive women's programs. By the way, I am a product of the focus on executive women. I was differentially invested early in my career by Ralph Peterson, who hired me and was my mentor. 10 years ago, I was asked to join a formal program within CH2M Hill to mentor and accelerate my career. I don't know, I think it worked out pretty well for me. So I would like to say our goal is to attract and retain more senior women leaders. We want to have more than anyone in the industry. We already do. And their job is to pay it forward continually. You talked about our network program, so thank you for doing that. And we do focus on mentoring and leadership development. One last area that really matters to us, we do tirelessly invest in STEM, in science, technology, engineering, and math programs in our communities. Hundreds of school partnerships from elementary through college around the world and through intern programs. We know that women in STEM make our company and the world a better place to be, and frankly, better than if we just had men. Women constitute 48% of the workforce. Now, when I was starting out, women were only 10% of the STEM population. Right now, they are 25%. Congresswomen, how did we beat elected officials? I don't know how that happened. I'm feeling good about it, by the way. If it continued to double, pretty soon women would be running all the science, technology, engineering, and math, so you know that would go well, wouldn't it? We do know that women now, at least in the United States, comprise more than half of the college students. I don't think we're ever going back. That will continue. That is a fact. We are encouraging them to go into STEM careers. We know that STEM careers will will grow at double the rate of the overall U.S. labor force. In Colorado alone, we will hire 200, not we as a company, I would love to, by the way, but Colorado will need to fill 250,000 STEM jobs in the next 4 years. And by 2018, Colorado will rank 14th in the nation In science, technology, engineering, and math jobs, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we are 22nd in population, but we will be 14th in science, technology, engineering, and math. Pretty impressive. And finally, we do know that women in STEM jobs earn 33% more than those in non-STEM occupations, and we know that there is the smallest wage gap. By the way, there should be no wage gap, but in engineering, there is the smallest wage gap compared to men of any field in the world. And so we are very proud of that. We are pushing that. So what can you do? I mean, you all already know this. You've made an investment in being here and in your life's work. Certainly, let's encourage all of our daughters and sisters and wives and nieces to own their lives. In the words of the great Nelson Mandela, there is no passion to be found in playing small, in settling for the life that is the one that is less than you are capable of living. I would also argue, by the way, that we should be encouraging our sons, husbands, brothers, and nephews, not only to do that, but to encourage women as well. We all know about getting involved, volunteering, mentoring, donating, and just having a sense of outrage. A sense of outrage and passion is a healthy thing. If you're inclined like me, make it your life's work. Many of you already do this, particularly with the very, very talented NGOs and other organizations here. I am a rich person, and it's not based on money. It's because I get to wake up every day, and I actually know that I am part of a team that literally makes a difference in the world every day, and my people make a difference in women's lives every day. And there's nothing better than that. There's nothing you could give me that would beat that. I would like to say that although I am so proud and honored to be here for International Women's Day, I hope that before I retire, we do not celebrate International Women's Day anymore, because every day is a day for women. So on behalf of CH2M Hill, I want to thank you for this award, but more importantly, thank you, and thank you to my colleagues for your dedication to women everywhere.
Thank you so much. Not shabby for the world's largest, or one of the world's largest construction and engineering companies. I love hearing those words coming out of a woman CEO's mouth, and I'm sure you all join me there too. Now it's time to hear from our panel. I'm going to ask moderator Donna Bryson to make her way up here. Donna returned to Denver in 2012 from 19 years as a foreign correspondent working in countries all over the world. She now keeps the rest of the world current on U.S. developments. Her book on race relations in South Africa, where she has spent quite a bit of time, will be published in May. And Donna, I hope we'll have you come back and talk about that book when it's out and we can sell it. So thank you very much for being here today. And I'm going to turn the panel over to you. Ask the other panelists, please, to use the far stairs and take your seats.
I'm a journalist, so I just have questions ready, nothing more to say. But my book comes out in May. It's going to be a South African publisher, and the book is about a university in South Africa, the University of the Free State, which was founded by white Afrikaners about the same time of the American Civil War. And it stayed all white for a very long time. It did not integrate its hostels, its dormitories, until 2007, which was quite a bit after the first all-race elections in South Africa. And there was a bit of an explosion after that, a reaction to that from white students and from really white parents and white adults who didn't want this to happen. And the university, I think, took a revolutionary step in reaction to this. It named the black man as its president for the first time in the university's history. So the book is a lot about this black man who I think was the right person at the right time and who came to campus trying to determine why young people who hadn't really known apartheid were thinking like their fathers and their mothers. And one of the things he did was take the very first year students and send them away just for a little bit like the program that these 16 women are on here, to get outside of their regular kinds of thinking, to try to encourage them to see themselves differently in the world. And one group came to Texas. So my book is also about what this group found in Texas and what the Texans learned from them. So I hope you guys will get to see it very soon. Are we ready? All right. I'd like to start by asking our leaders here to introduce themselves and to tell you a little bit about their projects. And we'll just go straight down the line, starting with Patricia.
Okay. Well, I'm a Canadian as well, Marcy. we have a Canadian insurgency, I think, going on with Donna here. I'm also a U.S. citizen. My background has been women's issues for, I hate to say it's now 40 years. 40 years that I've been doing women's issues, and did it a lot in Canada, did it at my kitchen table, ended up being appointed to advise 2 prime ministers on the impact of federal issues on women and children. Can you hear? No? Okay. And then most recently, after moving to Colorado, I spent some years sort of away from women's issues, doing mainly children's issues, early childhood education, and then really had one of those ha-ha moments. And I think we all have had ha-ha moments, but mine was certainly around what was happening to women in peace and security, around what was happening to women in conflict zones, as the nature of our wars in the last 30 to 40 years changed so significantly. We saw what was happening to civilians in those wars, and then more particularly what was happening to women in those wars. And I think for me, my consciousness really began with the Balkan Wars, the massive use of rape against women as a war, a tool of war. And then fast forward to what happened after 2001. Certainly the dark years for women in Afghanistan was something that I, along with many of you here in this room today, took a deep breath. We could not believe the atrocious horrors that were going on, the abuse of human rights against women during the Taliban years of Afghanistan. But then when 2001 happened, it was really a wonderful moment for peace and democracy in a country. Women marched back into the streets, they joined civil societies, they began to take control of their own constitution, they began to participate in their legislature, they began to be educated, they began to go to health clinics. Even though the data was so massive against women in Afghanistan, they were making huge strides. And then 2010 happened, and I happened to be on a board in Kandahar at the time and found out that there was a secret negotiation going on with the Taliban. And that, for me, made me realize that if we as women in civil society don't step up, then those women will have their rights taken from them silently at a negotiation table. And that's when I joined with Cinda. Cinda, where are you? Cinda, wave, there she is. Cinda. Cinda and I, along with Elizabeth Roberts, had a cup of tea. What else do women do? And we said, well, if we're going to do something for the women of Afghanistan, then we better include the women of Pakistan and India. You know, I don't know why we thought that, Cinda, but, you know, we thought this was a trade route. This is where people used to trade goods, ideas, culture for decades, centuries before it became the Eurasian landmass of massive conflict. So we decided that the only way that we could possibly enter this field was to do a listening tour. So a listening tour was arranged. It took months and months and months to plan a listening tour to focus only on women leaders, individual women leaders of civil society, not women politicians, specifically leaders of civil society. That listening tour allowed us to hear the voices of women, and I learned one thing from that. We provided the space. We provided the space and the resources from many women in this room for those women to come together and have a conversation. And they came together across 3 countries in Nepal in 2011. They decided they wanted a network. They decided they wanted to meet in Nepal because it was neutral ground. They decided they wanted to address key issues that impacted women, and that was, they all agreed, separate from each other, every day, different country, different city. They agreed that it would be corruption and militarization of aid and development as it impacted women's security. That then led us to the Women's Regional Network. So they carried on with voices of women in their own respective countries. They said, we cannot speak for the women unless we raise those women's voices up. So at the back of the room, you will find the beginnings of 3 reports that document those women's voices from very rural, isolated, rugged communities of those 3 countries. And that is the Women's Regional Network. Thank you.
My name is Galit Deshe. I'm from Israel. I'm the executive director of the Israeli Women's Network. It's 30 years old this year, a feminist organization. We're actually one of the first, in Israeli terms, 30 years is a lot. And we're one of the first feminist organizations in Israel. We actually do advocacy, lobby in promoting women's rights, and I'll probably tell you a little bit more about the organization later. I'm 44 years old. I always state my age because I think every feminist woman should say her age. Another requirement was to mention that I have 3 daughters. They said that, Mom, if you're going away for 3 weeks and we're traveling for 3 weeks, you have to say that you have 3 daughters whom you left home with Dad. And so I have 3 daughters, and I have a PhD in political science and gender. And 10 years ago, I finished my PhD. It was on gender and nationalism and the Palestinian Authority in Northern Ireland. I noticed there's an Irish table here somewhere, right? I noticed Ireland somewhere, and that's my second home. Law firm, but I noticed Ireland, and so. And as you can see, I also can say Ireland. And at some point, I realized that, as I always say, I prefer maybe not to write about what other women do, or maybe someday someone will write about what I do. And I started this journey. I finished my postdoctoral position. I got another one at Brandeis University, skipped it, and decided I want to work with NGOs, with feminist NGOs in Israel. Took a year and a half, 60 applications, I think. And believe it or not, there was not much demand in the market for a 34-year-old woman with a PhD and no other qualifications whatsoever. And eventually, I was accepted to create the Department of Education in a wonderful organization called the Sexual Assault Crisis Center in Tel Aviv. And I worked there for 5 years. I counseled parents and children and adolescents on sexual assault, and worked with teachers and created a department on sexual harassment. I still counsel sexual assault. We call them survivors. We don't use the word victims. And 2.5 years ago, I became the executive director of the Israeli Women's Network. And I've been doing that ever since, actually. So I'll tell you a little bit about our organization later on.
My name is Donna.
So my name is Donna Morton, and I am one of the other overrepresented Canadians on the panel. We need to, right? Yeah, we need to. So I've had a very unorthodox career. I started in the environmental nonprofit movement and really started out my career fighting against things. And I sort of hit a place somewhere in my late 20s where I actually grew kind of soul weary of trying to stop things that I thought were going wrong in the world. And I started my transition towards really becoming an entrepreneur and starting things that I could be really proud of in the world. I started a clean energy company called First Power that worked with Indigenous communities in Canada to build community-owned clean energy projects. I also, whether you're pro or against carbon pricing, I worked really hard for a decade on the BC carbon tax. So I have this, bizarre career, and I realized in getting ready for this speech that in some ways I've always worked in male-dominated spaces. I worked in energy, I worked in tax policy, I worked in kind of environmental policy, and now I've made the switch to finance. It might seem odd that I've jumped into the finance space, but it really comes from this observation, that some of the most disruptive, innovative, talented entrepreneurs on the planet are women, Indigenous, people of color, and people in really poor regions of the world. And they're getting a tiny percentage of the real capital. So yes, they're getting microcredit money, and often when you talk about women in finance, people assume either you're talking about the charitable sector or you're talking about microcredit. And I have deep respect for both those places. I'm talking about macro finance. I'm talking about moving billions of dollars to the best and brightest entrepreneurs in the world. So less than a year ago, a group of 9, 5 women and 4 men, and the men are also really awesome on our team, built a finance company that really, it's called Principium, and it's designed to work across all asset classes. We work on public equities, private equities, and direct investments from our profits in the world's most unreasonable, innovative, and disruptive entrepreneurs. I love it. I had no idea how much I would love finance. But maybe I love it most because I also realize that of all the sectors in the world, first of all, women are the least represented. So if engineering has the most representation of women, finance has the least. It's about 7% of the top of the finance industry that are women, and that bugs the heck out of me. So I'm sitting here as one of those people determined to build a big, fat, successful finance company that moves money into the world we want. And so, a lot of what we do is fund clean energy, sustainable agriculture, schools in Pakistan, medical technology in India. We're really looking to build the world we want through finance, because it's my belief that finance is the single most powerful sector on the planet. If we want to look at every other decision made in the world and every other economy globally, finance is the driving force. If you control finance, if we lay our hands and our hearts and our values on the finance system, we can change anything. We can stop the extreme gap between rich and poor, we can arrest climate change, and we can restore the rightful place of Indigenous wisdom. Because whether we realize it or not, there's people who have lived on this earth for 10,000 years with incredibly deep things to teach about the world. And so that's my vision for what happens, is that rooms like this decide, you know what, we're going to take hold of our finance, we're going to use our own investments and our own pensions, and we're going to steer the world toward the world we want. Thank you.
And then Katya's turn.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kasia. It's the short version of the name you have in your folders, and it's much easier to pronounce. I'm working for the Women's Congress. It's an association in Poland. And actually, imagine we have 350 people in here. The Women's Congress that we organize every year in Poland gathers 10,000 women from all over the country. So imagine the power, the energy they create by networking, sharing their experiences, discussing, and meeting each other once a year. But this happens once a year. This year it will happen in May, 9th and 10th of May in Warsaw. But besides, we also work very much through the whole year. So what we do, we focus on 2 areas. First area is politics. We first of all support women in politics. And as this year and the next year are the electoral years in Poland, this year we have the European Parliament and the local government elections in Poland, and next year we have parliamentarian and presidential elections. We need more women in politics in Poland. So we provide trainings and support them in media and provide them the space they need to succeed. That's one thing. The second thing we do is advocacy. So we do advocacy regarding gender equality and women's rights. We created shadow cabinet that we say it's not an opposition, but it's a constructive proposition to the real government, the real cabinet. So we propose what we think. We don't oppose what the government does. And by proposing, we mean we are meeting the prime minister, we are meeting the ministers, and we are really discussing with them their job, their issues, their things. And actually, just 2 days ago was the last meeting with the prime minister. As always, around the International Women's Day, the prime minister of Poland meets our shadow cabinet. And we discussed one of the most important things for us at this moment, which is the zipper system and the parities on electoral lists in Poland, as we believe this is the tool which will increase the number of women in politics in Poland. We also discussed the Convention on Prevention and Elimination of violence against women, which is signed but not ratified by Poland, which is not ratified because the previous Minister of Justice didn't want to sign it, so he's not a minister anymore because of our war. And the Prime Minister 2 days ago promised that it will be signed this month and then in April it will go to the Parliament to be later discussed by the Parliament. So, as you see, we really work on this highest political level to achieve our goals. One of them is that we already have 35% on electoral lists, so at least 35% of people on the list will be women, and we hope to have 50% soon. So that's the politics and advocacy work we do. And besides, we also work to support women on boards in business. And we cover those two areas, politics and business, because we believe that the more women we will have in both of them, the better country and better impact we can create for Poland and for our country. The idea is spreading. It's actually, the Congress started in 2009, and just a few words how it started, because it was planned as a single conference to celebrate 20 years of democratic transition in Poland. 1989, democratic transition, 2009, it occurred that no women are invited for any of the events that are happening in Poland to celebrate the past 20 years, which meant women didn't have any impact. They didn't do anything in the past 20 years, Nobody wanted to listen to their voice. So we decided to organize such a conference to share our experiences. So nobody wanted to listen to us, so we decided to create our own event. This is how it started. So we just wanted to meet once, just to discuss, 300 women, we will discuss, talk. But then this 3,000 or 4,000 women came, and we decided, okay, if 4,000 women come instead of 300, it means that we have to actually continue this. This is how we came to today, after 5 years. We are where we are right now. On our board, we have over 250 women from all over the country, from politics, from media, from NGOs, from academy, from universities, and also from business. And this helps us to create a real impact. This is the key to success, to unite. This is how we are here. We have really very, very different women here, and this is the key to success, to unite. And this is what we are trying to spread somehow around the world. Maybe word is too big word for now, after 5 years only. But the Congresses of Women already took place in Hungary and in the Czech Republic, in London, Great Britain, and the next 3 are already planned for Paris, for Tallinn, Estonia, and actually for Chicago in the autumn this year. So feel all of you invited. This is what I do. This is where I work since, where I have worked for the past 2 years. And before that, I've been working in the NGO sector for 7 years in humanitarian assistance and development cooperation. So I coordinated also the projects in Israel and Palestine, and besides, we also had development projects in South Sudan, Somalia, Haiti, Philippines, Libya, like across the world. And this is like my second hat, and this is what is also very, very close to me. And actually, I would like one day to combine those two areas, which is at the moment not possible in Poland yet, but to combine gender in development and would be really something to go forward. So that's it. Thank you.
All right.
We have a variety of concerns, and the panel is kind of all over the world, but I think what unites them is it's women helping other women. And I'd like to hear a little bit about what you feel you have in common with the women you've set out to help. And we'll go the other way this time. We'll start with you.
What we have in common with the other women?
With the women that you're trying to help.
We are all women. And, you know, like participating in this group, we are 16 now here sitting in this room, and we've been traveling already for 2 weeks, and we are all the same. Even coming from so different cultures, from so different backgrounds, from different organizations, countries, cultures, we still share the same problems, the same challenges we have to face. And this is also what I see when I meet those 10,000 women that come to the Congress. You know, I come from the very small village in Poland, which is like 3,000 people. I live in Warsaw now, which is 2 million people. And actually, I have those experiences with this village rural women whom I grew up with, and now with the women in Warsaw, my age, with the women I'm working with, so decision-maker, politicians, academics. And every discussion we have, I see they have exactly the same problems. They have to face the same obstacles. It's not like, okay, I think, okay, I'm 29 years old. I said it. Which means in 10 years it will disappear, and you know I will live my happy life and happy adult life. You know, it will not. And this is what we have to have in mind, thinking about the future, but also just not treat it as something what will stop us in our work. So I always say to my sister, who is 18 years old, turning 2 days, and she moved out she moved out from home 2 years ago, you know, and she's like challenging her teenage life, and I always say, do what you want. You can do it, you know. Don't look at that you have this problems or that problems or whatever problems. You will have them your whole life. Just do what you want. No. Just take it.
Well, it's been really interesting. I'm 47, by the way.
We'll have a poll later.
Yeah, we'll have an average median. So I realize that for many of us, talking about finance, stepping into finance is intimidating. There's a lot of women that historically have been, shut down by the space of finance. But in the early conversations that I've had with some of our first clients, it's included a 60-year-old woman who is a Montessori school teacher whose entire net worth is about $20,000, who wants to have it absolutely line up with her values. Another very high net worth 30-year-old inheritor who, just doesn't want to make the same decisions about money that her father and her grandfather made, and so wants to have her relationship to finance and money be empowering, to have it align with who she is as a being. Because in many ways, that's kind of what money is. It's this great extension of us that goes out into the world. And so, we know who we want to be at home with our families, with our children, with our dogs and cats. We know that really high sense of ourselves when we're at our best with the people we love. But the idea of what we're trying to do is take that wider. How do we take who we are as a financial human being and roll it out around the world and touch people in places in a way that aligns with our integrity? And so, in most of the conversations I have with actually men and women about money, we sit, we talk, we cry. We talk about our pain, our shame, either growing up very wealthy or growing up very poor. There is enormous amounts of pain and shame and guilt that we carry underneath our financial relationships. And so getting through that, breaking through that with people feels like an enormous honor. So I feel like I'm a bit of a finance midwife or a finance shaman. I feel like I'm a finance therapist. But I'm healing myself through doing this work. You know, I grew up in a really poor, messed up context around money. And I learned very unhealthy things about lack and poverty. So there's also something that I can bring to the conversations that are really real. This hasn't been easy for me. Embracing myself as a financial being and being whole in the world has not been easy. And so I can have these extremely powerful relationships with people and get real about money because we need to.
I actually think it's not what I have in common with the women we help. I'm the women we help, actually, because you know, there's a tendency in Israel, not just in Israel, for feminist organizations to work with women who are less fortunate most of the time. And most of the time, we don't look at ourselves and also our needs and our troubles. And what the IWN does, we focus on on a very wide variety of women from all kinds of groups. And when we oppose the government's intent, which just emerged again 3 days ago in Israel, to raise the age of pension rights, and in Israel it means that in Israel women have the right to withdraw their pension money when they're 62, men at 67, and they intend to raise the age to 64 for women, just, you know, get them towards 67, and we oppose it because what they're saying is that women will have more time, a few more years to get more money into their pension funds. And what we're saying is that if 47% of all Israeli women work, and that's an average because Arab women only 20% work, and so there are different, and they don't work because they don't want to. They don't work because there aren't many opportunities for Arab women in Israel. No transportation, no one will hire them, less education. It's not just because of religion, etc. It's mostly because we're not, well, I'll stop here regarding my thoughts of that. So 50%, almost 50%, 47% of all Israeli women work. But from the age of 50 to the retirement age of 62, half of those 50% of women will stop working. They'll be fired and won't find a job, or they'll be paid less because they really need a job. So when they reach the age of 62, if they have a pension, because in Israel till 2008 you weren't required to pay pension rights to every worker, then they won't have a job anyway. So if you raise the age of withdrawing your pension money, women will become weaker, poorer, sicker, and these are the weaker women, but this is also me. I mean, and I'm not just talking about it because I wake up at least once a week and say I want to retire because I'm a bit tired. But, but it's because I know what's ahead, and I know what labor market in Israel, how it views women. And I always say that the labor market in Israel still views women as guests. Sometimes we're more welcome, and sometimes they tell us, you know, okay, you've had your time, now please go back home, take care of the kids, or do whatever it is you women do, because we need more jobs for men, and the labor market in Israel is very unstable. We have a fairly high rate of unemployment. So I think that what I do is I work for myself, I work for my daughters, and I also work for all different kinds of women. One of the main things we do, I told you that we're doing lobby and advocacy, but we do lobby and advocacy. At the same time, we do a lot of legal work. We take cases to court. We focus on women in the labor market. We do a lot of other things, but we focus on women in the labor market, and we take cases to court. And we do it for free, because if you want to sue, if you were fired because you were a woman, because in Israel it's illegal to fire you when you're pregnant or go through fertility treatments. Despite that, 80% of all demands for getting authorization to fire women by the Ministry of Work get permission. So we take a lot of cases to court, and we do it for free. Imagine that, and most women don't have the money to pay for this type of service. So this is also part of what we do. So we try to serve. I know it sounds a bit, out there, but we view ourselves as giving support to every woman in Israel.
I don't have much in common with the women I work with, because their daily lives are filled with fear that I don't fear every day that I get up in the morning and go to bed at night. So my life with them is one where they want me to share a lot of the anguish that they have. And when I arranged the meeting in Nepal, I had invited a lovely young woman who I'd actually never met. I'd only talked to her on the phone, to come to Nepal from Kandahar. And it wasn't until I had sent the email asking her to come to Nepal that I went to bed, picked up The Economist that was beside my bed, and went to the back page, which all of you who read The Economist know, it's the obituary. And the obituary, of course, was her father. I had no idea. I just sent this email to a woman whose father had been blown up by a suicide bomber because he was the mayor of Kandahar. And he'd been blown up by a Pakistani extremist group. She came to Nepal. She brought her little 2-year-old girl. She brought her mother, and she brought her husband. But the women that came to Nepal started to share on this long spectrum of how their lives had unfolded for them. And every single woman from Afghanistan had lost either a father, a brother, or an uncle. The women in Pakistan had served many years in prison for just speaking their mind about human rights. One woman from Pakistan had had 2 fatwas issued against her, to the point that the Supreme Court of Pakistan had a special security guard around her. The women from Kabul that I met with only last week pulled me aside and want to know what I could do to help them leave Afghanistan quickly. So what my life is doing is just trying to support their life as much as possible. So I don't have as much in common. They laugh about it, because one time I was flying into Islamabad, and I happened to be on a plane with a special forces guy who was so concerned that I was flying into Islamabad at 2 in the morning, and filled me with fear that I should not be going to Pakistan by myself and coming into an airport at 2 in the morning. And I got myself into such a state that by the time I got to Dubai, I picked up my cell phone and I was texting them all saying, who's going to meet me at the airport at 2 a.m.? And what they did was they text back, said, well, welcome to our world. So
I'll sneak in one more question. Yeah, and I think we're at exactly the right person to talk about what you've learned about how cultural connections can be made.
Well, yeah. Well, I talked about bringing the women together in Nepal, and one of the magical things that happened at that meeting, because these were women that not one of them knew each other. No one knew each other. So they came from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India, and as you know, there's been an ongoing conflict between Pakistan and India for a long time. So they have a lot of ingrained hostility towards each other. But 2 of them brought their 2-year-old girls, daughters. One was Zara, one was Lara. Who would have thought? They were only 2 days apart. And, you know, it was very magical to have 2 little 2-year-old girls wearing their native costumes at every meal. And though they didn't attend our meetings, they circulated around us. And that was a really wonderful lowering of tension. Now that they all know each other, what we do is dance. We dance and dance and dance. So if we have a meeting that starts at 9 and it has a 10:45 break, we put the music on and everybody dances, and that's how we make it through all our meetings. So it's actually a lot of fun.
Have you had a chance to see these kinds of connections made across differences?
I want to say something about the group we're traveling with. I have 3 friends on our group. Saha from Palestine, Ines from Tunisia, and Shahadia from Yemen. And I think on the first day, Saha was saying, she told Ines, oh, Galit and I were going to have so many arguments. We actually agree, Saha and I. But it's not just that we're women. I think feminism is an extremely powerful agenda, ideology that gets us across the divide in so many ways. We also talk about our kids and, with makeup and all other types of things, but we have very similar agendas. We have very similar demands, very different problems, I think, but it's actually, I know that it's kind of I know that it's a bubble, and I know that in a week we'll go back each to our own countries and continue with our everyday lives, and this is kind of a, special atmosphere. But there's something, and I see that in my work every day, because I work with all types of women in Israel. I work with Arab women, I work with Ethiopian and Russian, and some of my best friends did not grow up the way I did. And our ideology and aspiration towards equality, and actually, I know it sounds, kind of big, but it's International Women's Day, we're allowed. That's what gets us going together. This is what enables us to work together. And for example, Israeli parliament we have 120 parliament members, 27 are women. I know it doesn't sound much, but it's the largest number we had so far. But the most amazing thing about these women, and for the past 30 years, female parliament members in Israel have always joined together from all sides of the divide. And now we actually have almost all 27 female parliament members are born declared feminists, which is incredible. They have their own WhatsApp group, actually, yeah, and their own lobby group, and we work together in Israel. NGOs and parliament members work a lot together. A lot of the legislation that is passed was written by NGOs. For example, my organization, we just had 4 days ago, one of our amendments to the Equal Pay for Equal Work Rights was passed with the head of the Women's Rights Committee at the Knesset. We're very proud of it. And by the way, we have our own Lily Ledbetter in Israel, but she actually won her case in court. We took a case to the Supreme Court 2 years ago, and we won. The numbers in Israel are the same as in the US, almost 34% wage gap differences between men and women. But we can actually work together. And this is something that I find inspiring every day. And this is something I remind myself every day when I say, well, I'm finished with those group of crazy feminists. And I don't see that many groups that manage to work together that well as we do.
So there's 2 quick stories. One, so I grew up with my European family, but I have some Aboriginal heritage from Canada, Ojibwe Nation. And when I started working with Indigenous communities years later, the older women would generally come up to me and say, hey, what's going on? Like your cheekbones, like what's your bloodlines? And we would have these really fascinating conversations. And then I would say, I didn't grow up with my Aboriginal family, and they would say, oh, but so what? And we're going to teach you. You need to learn. There's things that you need to know about the world. And so there was this incredible generosity. And then 2 years ago, I went to Scotland, where I also have heritage, and the same thing happened. These elder women who were rediscovering their indigenous sense of themselves and their responsibility as elders did the same thing and took me over to their homes and sat me down by their fire and said, there's things you need to know. And you need to know where the bones of your ancestors are, and you need to know things about your ancestors in order to be more powerful in the world. And then 2 years ago, I had the incredible opportunity to come to Colorado for the first time to go to the Unreasonable Institute, which is an accelerator program for kind of radical businesses in the world that are trying to change the world. And I met women from 17 different countries. And we discovered these really beautiful connections, between our lives, that being an entrepreneur was hard, accessing capital was harder still, work-life balance and how we take care of our families was just this huge issue. But we discovered these really beautiful patterns in terms of the way women see change in the world, the way women can reinvent business. So it was just this incredible, complex cultural container. The biggest gift, both men and women that sort of live together in this 6-week incubator program, it's true, we never fought. We didn't compete with each other. There was this incredible spirit of, we're in this work together. Our work is love. It has many different manifestations, but in common, our work is all about love. And so I learned so much about global collaboration, about how much is possible beyond culture, that we were all deeply cognizant of our own cultural identities and carried pride in our cultural identities, but we could transcend that also and become people of the world, for the world. And really, some of the best entrepreneurs I've ever met are from Liberia, Angola, Pakistan, India, South Africa. Some of the most deep genius are these stranded assets, these people in places that the rest of the world has ignored. And so I usually make a joke about, not all smarty pants people are white boys in Silicon Valley, so they don't get all the money anymore. But it's true. We have to see the genius in unique places and beyond our own cultural blinders.
Poland is a very homogeneous country. If you come to Poland, 99%, 95 will be white and Catholic. This is our, cultural diversity in Poland, which made me be always interested in everything except Poland, which is why I wrote my bachelor thesis about Eastern Africa, my master thesis about South Africa, why I traveled to Kenya and lived there for a while. I lived in South Africa for a while. Now I'm writing my PhD about African American women. And these are my personal experiences, which I, unfortunately, except my academic background, cannot really experience in Poland. But our cultural differences in Poland, I would say, and this is what I want to elaborate more, I would see them between those rural women we have in Poland and the women who live in cities. And this is really a huge gap. And this is also something I grew up in such society, in this culture. So it was always obvious for me. I knew their life. Maybe my parents are teachers, both of them. My father is a director of the school. So I was always somehow in this, elite of our village. And, but most of my friends were those girls whose parents were, having cows, fields, etc. I was visiting my friends, and this is what they had at home. But it was so obvious for me, and then I moved to Krakow for my studies, and then I discovered that people there never saw a cow, I had to teach them, what a cow is and how it looks like and what to do with a cow. And that was somehow my Polish cultural, experience. But okay, like it went through. And right now, when I'm working in the Women's Congress, I told you, we have this 250 women, and there are still those privileged women in the country. As I said, we have politicians, media women, business women. They are all from Warsaw. Like 230 out of 250 are from Warsaw. They were born in Warsaw or other big cities in Poland. So we had to somehow, those of us who are not from Warsaw, who came to Warsaw, we had to teach them also that Poland is not about Warsaw only, that we have a lot of other experiences. And we will not achieve our goals if we not encourage those women to come to Warsaw for the Women's Congress. If we don't have them united with us. So this is our biggest work right now, because in Warsaw, it's so much easier the life for a woman. But for those who live there, and they have to, sorry for saying that, but fight the church, fight the priest in their villages to achieve somehow their rights. And I'm not telling about equality, but this is what we have in Poland. And, so this is like balancing. We cannot say them that the priest is a bad person, but they have to discuss, they have to find, the way to talk to a priest, because the priest is the person who is influencing the rural society the most in our villages. So this is what we did. We started our regional program within the Congress, and we started to invite them. We were going to different villages, small cities in Poland, inviting them, doing the trainings, workshops, and somehow we started to build the network of local leaders. At the moment, we have 30 women across the whole country. In the past year, after 1.5 years since we started the project, we had 21 regional congresses in the whole country. And each of congresses was attended by 500 women at least. In the cities, of 40,000 people, 500 women came because they wanted to come to have this experience of networking, of seeing other women united, And this is what I experienced as the cultural exchange, or however we call it, in Poland. We don't have this ethnic background. Well, we can have somehow, or we can talk about our German ancestors. I'm 25% German. I'm always proud of telling this. And we have a lot on the eastern border, if you talk about Belarus, Ukraine, Russia also. But this is still minority in Poland, if we talk. But this diversity and these differences between rural women and the city women are still so huge. And this is our main focus right now, to empower them, because they are the leaders, They are the ones who need to be empowered. Thank you.
I think we've gone over, and it's my fault. I want to thank the panelists very much. And an idea, a chant from the South African anti-apartheid movement has been going through my head as I listen to these women, so I'll share it with you. It's, you strike a woman, you strike a rock. And these are rocks. Nice to meet you all.
So I'm going to release you into the snow in just a second. I wanted to thank all of our panel. Join me one more time. I hope you have been as inspired as I am today to think about the work that is being done just by people in this room. And I want to take that energy out into the snow and make a difference. So as you leave, take your program with you. Check out our website. We have some very exciting programs coming up at World Denver very shortly on Canada, on the EU, on global energy, on World Cup soccer, on Afghanistan and on Pakistan that you won't want to miss. Our very next program will feature former Secretary of Defense Bob Gates talking about his bestseller, Duty. And one final announcement, the winner of the Canada Bag, drum roll, is Eve Lindemuth Badeau. So Eve, if you go to the Canada table, you can pick up your swag. I am told there is no Mountie in it, so bummer for you, but lots of maple syrup. Have a great weekend, a great International Women's Day, and we look forward to seeing you again at World Denver.